Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the September 19th, 2012 Pittsburgh Board of Public Education Special Legislative Meeting. Before we begin this evening, I'd like to ask everyone to please turn off all cell phones and pagers or put them on vibrate. Would everyone please rise so we can salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good.
Thank you. Mr. Weiss, can we please have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley? Here. Mrs. Khaleesi?
Here.
Mrs. Fink? Here. Dr. Hawley? Present. Mr. Eisler?
Present.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mrs. Shealy? Absent. Mr. Sumter?
Present.
Mrs. Azuda?
Here.
8 members present.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. The committee report on personnel is before you. Are there any questions or comments on this item? Mr. Brentley?
Yes, I do. I want to take a second before we vote on this item. I do want to say that I am going to be putting on my parents' hat this evening. This issue has my stomach in knots. And so I will be standing with parents. I will be voting no for this item. Quite a few things, I'm sorry? I can do that too, but whatever vote does not support what's before us. Information for me as a board member just has not flowed the way it should have. I'm getting my information from the newspapers, and I'm a director here. I just don't. My feeling is with the parents. Counseling, what's going on? Did it happen? Could it possibly have been much more? And so I would not have my game face on today in putting the best foot forward. I do not want to be a part of anything that can look like it's misleading the public or just putting a great PR campaign together. My vote today is a vote coming from a father of 5, and if I would have been received that information 10 years later from one of my children. So I am not I am not with it today. So I wanted to clarify what a no vote or a yes vote coming from me today. The other concerns too is that our timing, where this item is dated the 11th, today is the 19th. I mean, it goes back, and there are so many questions here. So I needed to say that for the record, so the community will understand my position. Also for the fact that I'm unable to share with the community because the way information is not being shared here. I understand an investigation, but we are a board. We have to find a way to continue to gain the confidence of the community. And I think the best source of gaining anyone's confidence is the truth, and let the information flow. And I just don't believe it has happened thus far. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Khaleesi? Mrs. Fink? Dr. Hawley? Mr. Eisler? Mr. McCray? Mr. Sumter? Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brentley?
Clarification, Mr. Weiss, a yes vote means what, and a no vote means what?
Yes vote means you're voting to accept the resignation of this person in lieu of termination. A no vote means you're voting not to accept it.
Okay. My vote is no.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Dr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy is absent. Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
The motion carries 7-1. Mrs. Azuda, that completes the business on the agenda for the special meeting.
Thank you. And Mr. Brentley, I apologize for confusing when you knew what you wanted to do. I misunderstood, so thank you. There being no other agenda items before this evening, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Kalazy, Eisler. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our agenda review meeting. I call the meeting of the Pittsburgh Board of Public Education, Agenda Review, September 19th, 2012. We'll begin this evening with the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. Ms. Baer, could you give us an overview, please?
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to bring to your attention, we're asking the board to accept the Race to the Top grant for the Pittsburgh Public School. The Race to the Top Phase 3 grant goes to the intermediates, and then it will turn to the school district. So that was our first item. I'm also asking you to look at general authorization. I'm asking you to accept a letter of agreement between the IU and Wilkinsburg to provide Title I services to 10 students at Amani Christian. And then we're asking you to ratify the agreement of the February 2008 PAIU Net Consortium contract that Montgomery County IU manages. You agreed to this in February 2008, so this is a continuation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beer. Are there any questions on the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit Education report? Okay, Mrs. Kalazy?
On item ED4, is this a different group than you had before?
I'm sorry, where are you at?
Number 4. The consortium. Is this a different consortium?
This is for, it's for the internet that the IUs run through Act 183. So that's what that is in regard. And it's the internet and
okay?
internet
Can
too.
you get through, guys? Sorry. I'm sorry, that wasn't clear. It says PAIU net.
Yes.
That, I had no idea what that meant. Intermediate Unit Network, that doesn't clearly tell me what it meant. I saw consortium, not
Consortium?
Thank you. And I assumed it was, yes. So
It is
I was-
not.
Okay. And then, Dr. Lane, you just a few moments ago explained to us about what could happen with, oh, she's not in the room. Never mind, I'll ask her later. Thank you.
Any other questions on the Committee on Education? All right, Ms. Beer on the Committee on Business?
We're asking the board to, for payments authorization for the IU needs a new network and server replacement since ours is showing its age of 13 years old. We're asking that the board go into payments to supply the equipment and provide the service. Then we have our daily payments. And under general authorization, we have COBRA for dental for up to 5 retirees that have just retired. And then there's an amendment to the Title I non-public, which you will see in your packet later for Pittsburgh Public Schools to amend the Title I.
Thank you, Ms. Beer.
Thank you.
Are there any questions on the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit Committee on Business? There being none, thank you, Ms. Beer. We will move on to the Committee on Education for the Pittsburgh School District. And we'll start out with the proposals and grants, numbers 1 and 2 on the green pages. And Mr. Sumter, we'll start with you and we'll go in this order. Mr. Sumter, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. No questions or comments at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Mr. McCray? Good. Mr. Eisler?
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Dr. Lippert, your name is on number 1, which is the Race to the Top Phase 3. This is another Race to the Top grant that is administered through the State Department of Education?
That is correct.
We also have applied for, I'm going back here, Race to the Top money that is specifically going to school districts, correct?
We're actually considering whether we're going to submit an application for Race to the Top monies that go directly to districts.
But this is still the Phase
Through the
3
state.
to state departments.
That's
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley?
Just for clarification, you're not applying for the Race to the Top? Okay. We're not applying for the grant that's directly for our school district?
We submitted a letter that said that there's 800 districts in the United States that submitted interest in actually submitting an application. We were one of those districts that said that we would submit a letter of intent to actually apply. We're currently in the process of evaluating whether we're actually going to submit the application.
So what will happen with the, last month, I think we voted on a person being paid to actually write that grant. So are we still paying that person?
Those services are actually paid when services are rendered. So currently we're in the proposal visioning process. So we haven't actually started to actually write the proposal, but my understanding, and Lisa's not here, but that we actually pay when the service is actually provided. So no monies have been expended to my knowledge.
Okay, so no money, so you wouldn't know, so who's supposed to know if we're going to be paying this person? Is she working with you to decide whether or not you are going to write the proposal? or not?
Yes, we're currently in the process of visioning what it would look like if we submitted a proposal, but we haven't actually started writing the proposal. There's kind of the pre-planning phase that you go through in terms of what you're actually going to put in a proposal. That's the phase that we're in currently.
Okay, so is she a part of that or not?
She attends meetings with us, and she's called in for a certain period of time. If we meet for 3 hours, she's typically there with us.
Oh, so we do have to pay her then, okay.
Yeah. Again, it's
Okay.
payment as services are rendered.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Khaleesi? Mr. Brentley? Okay. And I'm going to go back to Dr. Lippert and ask her to give us an overview of the education items this evening.
Thank you. I'll actually start because we already have 2 under our belt. I'll just start with the consultants and contracted and move to the other 3 sections. We do have 39 total items in the packet this evening, and given that we covered our Race to the Top and our other acceptance, I'll move into the contracted services. We have 17 items in this section. We have 2 items, items 3 and 4, that are actually tabs that are school-specific renewals. One supports Phase On, and that's their Grow Pittsburgh program, and the other one supports a 3-year renewal with the Rosemary Trail Food is Elementary program for Lincoln. We have 2 other school-specific tabs. These are new partnerships. This is item 5 and 6. The first one is with Phase On. Phase On is seeking to partner with the University of Pittsburgh Office of Childhood Development, and that's to support kindergarten attendance and also kindergarten success. And then the other new partnership we're seeking tonight is through Beechwood Elementary School. What they're asking is to expand the System 123, which is a behavioral management program. It's currently in the pre-K. They would like to expand it to grades K through 5. Moving on, we have items 7 through 11. These are 5 tabs that are related to our SIG grant, School Improvement Grant, at King, Perry, Brashear, and Phase On. And what this is asking is for support of providers that would provide social, emotional, and behavior support services for students, and that's really to remove the academic barriers. That partnership and providers are a requirement under the SIG grant, and so this is asking for the approval of those providers. And of course, those providers would work with the school-based SAP team. Also in this section, we have 5 tabs that are related to an item that you approved in last month's agenda, and that's our ELECT program grant supporting our pregnant and parenting teens. These are actually the contracts that come forward supporting that program. So we're seeking partnerships with Children's Hospital, Family Resources, McGee Women's Hospital, Pittsburgh Action Against Rape, and the Women's Center and Shelter of Greater Pittsburgh. Item 17 is a tab that we talked about last month. We actually ask you to do a 1-month extension on Cambridge Education. Cambridge Education is our partnership that provides our student perception survey. You also might hear it called Tripod, and that's one of our multiple measures Just to give the board some context, recently the state passed Act 82 of 2012, and that's an act that in 2013-14, it requires us and all school districts in the state of Pennsylvania to actually evaluate teachers using multiple measures. We currently have 3 measures in Pittsburgh. One of our measures is RISE. Another measure is our value-added measure work, and the other one is tripod. And we're actually moving into our 3rd year of work with tripod, and this is seeking a 3-year extension and continuation of that partnership. And again, I'm just highlighting that it's really important. It does serve as one of our multiple measures, which now Act 82 requires us to do. Item 18 is a renewal, and that's with Pittsburgh Cares. If the board remembers, Pittsburgh Cares is our partnership that supports our Civics Be the Change course, specifically the service learning component. And the last item in this section is requesting a consultant support from Wiley Blevins. Mr. Blevins is a nationally renowned expert in early literacy, and we're seeking his support to basically audit and do a gap analysis of our early literacy program, specifically K1, 2, 3. As we move towards Common Core alignment, we're asking him to come in and really look at the strengths of our current program, where we have gaps, and compare us to other districts like us, similar urbans that are getting better gains in 3rd grade reading than we are. Remember, we have a goal of 80%, and we're not meeting our 80% goal. So before we start doing work, we wanted somebody to come in and give us an analysis of what we're doing right and where we have some gaps. Moving into our payments authorized, we have 5 tabs in this section. The first 2 relate to our advanced placement program. And if the board remembers, we recently shared the Advanced Placement Executive Summary Report that shared some nice highlights of our advanced placement program, increase in the number of courses that are actually offered at our high schools, the number of students participating in advanced placement courses, the number of students actually taking AP exams, and some data around how they're actually performing on those AP exams. Anyway, the 2 related items in this section are related to training to support grade 6 through 10 teachers. What we call that is pre-vertical or pre-AP vertical team training, so that our 6 through 10 teachers are actually preparing our students for AP courses in 11th and 12th grade. And the second tab is an online program that supports our students in course preparation for AP, as well as providing them practice tests on AP exams. Moving on. We have 2 items, item 22 and 23, and these are basically train the trainer tabs. And what we're requesting is that we provide payment to Scholastic and Wilson. Those are 2 groups that would work with our KTO specialists. If the board remembers, our KTO stands for Keystone to Opportunity Grant. It was a $10 million grant over 5 years supporting our literacy efforts. We hired 8 literacy specialists. Those are the folks that we would actually partner with training. They would get training, and they would go and turn that training around in the schools that they work with. So that's specifically around Read 180, which is a Tier 2 reading intervention, and Tier 3, which is Wilson. We call it Just Words. So that's what that training's for. And the last item that we're really excited about is to pay the Association of the Study of African American Life and History to train 35 of our Civics Be the Change teachers around specific connections around African American life and history to the actual social studies standards and culturally responsive pedagogy. Okay, last section. As we move into general authorizations, we have 15 items, and we do have a replacement item in this section. So if you could go into your green folder, I believe. Is it green? In the blue folder. It's item number 28, and I'll talk about that in just a second. That's just a replacement item. Okay, our first 2 items in this section are not new to the board. Item number 25 and 26. The first item is our equity plan, asking for your endorsement. That plan is focused on accelerating student achievement and eliminating racial disparities, and Dr. Lane seeks your approval and endorsement of that plan. The second item, number 26, is a companion tab, and that's asking your support for the Memorandum of Understanding with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission around our racial equity work. Item number 27 is a no-cost partnership with Harvard Center for Educational Policy Research. This partnership would provide services to the district, specifically around what I call making use of multiple measures, so understanding how to analyze and build people's understanding of how you, across multiple measures, make connections, identify trends. I call that triangulation of data. So working with experts to help us become very expert in how we use the data from our multiple measures. Number 28 is a replacement tab. This is an annual tab. It's the Challenge Pittsburgh partnership, and it really bridges the connection between high school and the business community. And it's based after or patterned after a job performance where students receive monetary incentives across 4 categories of performance. And this is open to all 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And the 4 categories are academic excellence, academic improvement, community, and I have to reference my notes on the last, attendance. That's number 28. Number 29 is an MOU. It's really a continuation MOU. We've been in partnership with the Department of Human Services since 2009, and this is really about integrating data from the district with the Department of Human Services. And I'm almost done. Thank you for bearing with me. Items 30, 31, and 32 are board policy updates, specifically policy 102 and 103, which are your non-discriminatory policies. We have policy 916, which is suggested to move to policy 233, and that's around suicide prevention and postvention. And then we have the 1000 series, which is the community series of the board. We have one donation this month. Excited to announce the Pittsburgh Penguins Foundation donated $50,000 of hockey equipment to all elementary schools, K-8 schools, and middle schools. So we're very appreciative of that donation. 34 through 38 are 5 amendment tabs. I won't go into detail on those, but we can talk about those as we get to the section. And last but not least, number 39 is a new adoption of an 8th grade novel called The Forge. And this is in line with our objectives of increasing texts that actually are culturally responsive, but also aligned to the Common Core state standards with the increasing text complexity requirement. And unfortunately, I do not have a copy of the book because as the committee actually did the recommendation, they borrowed the books from the Carnegie Library, and then once they approved the novel to you, they returned the books to the library, and we're awaiting the shipment from the company. But we'll try to get you a copy before next Wednesday, if you'd like to read it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Lippert. Okay, we'll start with the pink section, numbers 3 through 19. Mr. Sumter, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. No questions or comments at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Mr. McCray.
I just want to point out number 3 and 4, 2 fantastic programs, Food and Nutrition and Growing Plants. Being a horticulturalist, I can't say enough about how important it is that we can identify what our food looks like, and it sounds to me like this is exactly what these programs are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. I have one question. I mean, I could ask a number of questions, but I know that a lot of the ones submitted by Ms. Ripper for this student support in some of the schools are renewing grants, so I'm assuming that they were successful last year. However, number 6, Dr. Lippert, when you were giving your remarks, this is System 1, 2, 3. It's listed as new, but I'm wondering, is this also going to work with the children in, the same in kindergarten through, or is this going to just move on? So this was a project that was done last year, utilized last year at the school, correct, with younger students?
No, that's not my understanding. System 1, 2, 3, you remember this because it's a partner with Carol Borough Martin for
I
all
do.
of our early childhood programs.
Right.
Beechwood has an early childhood
Right.
program. So I think what they're noticing is that for transition purposes, that it's an effective program, so they want to expand it for the first year to K1, 2, 3. And it's checked if you look at the actual tab, it's K to 5. So what is it?
Yes,
Yeah,
so,
K to
so
5.
then the answer to my question would be yes.
Long-winded.
Because it will be it would also continue to be used in the pre-K, but then it's moving through the other grades in terms of transition. Great, thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. I'm looking at item 5, the tracking of kindergarten students on attendance. And I'm glad to see this because this has always been a problem with getting parents to make sure the students attend kindergarten regularly. Are you going to be using this anywhere? Are we going to be gleaning information from this process at Faison to use at other schools that are, primarily those schools that are non-magnet schools?
So we will, just like we do any other promising practice in our schools. And Faison is one of you know that Faison is one of our turnaround models, and we are trying to study what they're doing and see what we can replicate in terms of best practices for other schools. We do know that if our children aren't in school, they're not going to learn, and we do recognize that we do have a pretty significant problem with attendance.
Yeah, we do have a significant problem with attendance for kindergarten youngsters that are primarily in some of our high-impact schools. And I just want to make sure that we use some of the information that we glean from this that support other schools that are not getting this $5,000, that's not using this their $5,000 to do this activity as well. Can you tell me why there aren't more schools participating in this, and it's just Faison?
I can't tell you school by school, but I can tell you that we have a pretty significant push to help schools analyze their attendance data, and we're finding a pretty significant overlap with attendance difficulties and lack of achievement in some of our schools. So we're using multiple approaches. This just happens to be the approach that Faison is taking.
Okay. So there are other approaches at other schools to help those schools as well to get their kindergarten students to attend school regularly.
But even beyond kindergarten students, one of the purposes of the data team is to provide more timely, actually pushing out attendance information. We're analyzing attendance threats in terms of looking at children who perhaps miss 10%, 20%, looking in categories to actively notify schools so that they don't have to go in and look at it. So that's going to be a central service that we want to provide to schools, either through a push-out email every 2 weeks, saying, here's a child who's missed X number of amount of time, so that we're being a lot more proactive in monitoring attendance, not just in kindergarten.
I don't want to keep keep asking this. The issue that I'm having is that this is a problem, I know, throughout the district, and specifically in your high-impact schools, that children aren't coming in kindergarten. We have the tools to do a lot of that work from first grade to 12th grade, but we don't have that, those really strong tools to use when we're working with kindergartners, because kindergarten isn't mandatory from the state. However, it is included in the attendance data for your AYP designation. So I'm just concerned that, well, it's not a concern. I just want to see, no, kindergarten isn't mandatory. Oh, kindergarten is not mandatory in the district. So, well, in the state. But we want to make sure that all of the kindergarten students throughout this, the school district attend. And I just want to make sure that we learn something, whatever we learn from this particular project, we're able to use in other schools, and why we're not using it now, but I'll go on. Okay, number 8, Cambridge. I'm sorry, yeah, number 17. It's on my page 8. Did we ever get any data? We haven't gotten any information as a board on, we never got any information. We did? When? Tell me. Did I miss it?
I provided information to the board after our last legislative meeting at Mrs. Khaleesi's request. Executive summary form of results at the school level and explanation around the tripod. I knew that our education committee this month was actually taken by the PSSAs. Ideally, we wanted to bring you a full-blown presentation, but that's delayed until next month. But we did provide pretty detailed information. I don't know if any other board members remember it. Okay.
I missed it.
I actually sent it twice because I was trying to be thorough, but the other thing that I would extend to the board is Mary Wolfson's our project manager, And we were hoping that some of you would want a tutorial so that we could actually take you into the website that actually reports so that you can see how schools interact with this data. You get a lot more from interacting through the website than you do as, a flat paper file. So that offer is still open to the board if you'd like to do that before next Wednesday. And I can resend that information to you as well, or get it to you.
Thank you, Dr. Lippert, because that totally went all past me, and I would like to see that, and I would like to at least see go through the tutorial to ascertain how well our environment is doing. Mr. Blevins, tell me a little bit about him and exactly what he will be doing.
Mr. Wally Blevins is a well-known author of several early childhood books. He's consulted with multiple publishing companies in the production of early literacy programs. I believe he has a master's from Harvard. And when we looked to researchers who could actually help us do what we want to do, his name kept surfacing. And we went to folks like the University of Pittsburgh, Isabel Beck, to say, who do you recommend to do this type of work? What he's actually doing, we are not satisfied with how our students are progressing in our K-5 curriculum, Macmillan. We've tried a lot of approaches, including putting in the response to intervention 30-minute period for all students in K-5. We've had considerable feedback from teachers and principals that they don't feel that the Macmillan program provides the appropriate rigor, sustained time on reading, or the complexity in developing vocabulary that students need to actually be successful as they go through the grades, and reading comprehension increases as well as vocabulary. So one of the things before we tackle alignment of the Common Core to our K-5 reading program, we wanted is somebody to come in here and basically do a gap analysis and provide consultation support to us around what are we doing well. So he would work with interviewing principals, observing classes, interviewing teachers, analyzing our data trends over the past 6 years, as well as looking across other districts like ours in the country to see if they're getting better gains. And if they are getting better gains, what are they doing differently than what we're doing? So we would expect that report to come to us by early winter, around January, so then we can use that report to make some informed decisions about how we're going to move to alignment to the Common Core. So.
Is he going to actually look at not so much the delivery of instruction, is he going to look at the materials themselves to see if they actually?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. He's going to look at both, but talking to teachers specifically around how they interact with the material, where they see strengths in the material and weaknesses. And that's not only, we have a program, which is Macmillan, but we also have a curriculum wrapped around Macmillan that picks up things that Macmillan doesn't do. So Macmillan, you approved about 6 years ago, so he'll be looking at all of it, focused predominantly on K through 3, but looking at K through 3 to set our students up for success in 3rd grade reading, 4th and 5th grade.
We're just doing the pink?
Yes.
Okay. That's
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mrs. Fink? She's okay. Okay. Mr. Brentley?
Yes, I think it's number 12 through 15. And these are these agencies that are providing a wide range of services. And I just want to ask, let's think, some of the agencies were the Centers for Victims of Violent Crime, Family Links, Maximizing Adolescents' Potentials, University of Pittsburgh, Mercy Behavioral, Next Generation, and I think there were a few others. How are we handling, well, first of all, are any of these agencies sharing any information on contraception and/or abortions? And if so, what's our process and our procedure for that?
To my knowledge, the answer is no. The group that would be closest to that would be the Pittsburgh Action Against Rape.
Okay.
And their focus is really around prevention of, identifying sexual harassment and prevention of sexual violence. Any of our partners are not allowed to do anything that does not comply with our board policy. And our board policy in terms of contraception is that they can disclose that it's a way to prevent pregnancies, but they are not allowed to distribute contraceptives.
Okay. And so how do they handle, or are the agencies aware of the proper way of handling questions or information concerning abortions?
Anytime that they're brought into our classrooms, they're under the guidance of one of our school employees. Usually it's our health and physical education teachers who are well-trained, and if it's not the health and physical education teachers, it's typically our counseling staff, and they're well-trained in our policies on those issues.
Okay. And they are aware that, of course, they can't recommend a student to it, and then what is our present policy, because there does require parental consent, am I correct?
To participate in these programs?
Well, participate in the programs, but also if anyone wanted to share additional information, contraception, abortion, that kind of information. And God forbid, I hope it's not happening, but
This really gets into our health curriculums, and if these programs were used in conjunction with the health curriculum, when the students approach units that might be controversial based on religion and/or family values, letters are sent home to parents where they can opt out of the unit. So this would apply if they were getting into some of the more controversial topics. The district's stance on contraception is that abstinence is the best policy. If students would make a decision, what we do is we help them make informed decisions, which is why we talk about contraceptives in terms of preventing sexually transmitted diseases, unwanted pregnancies, et cetera. But that's as far as we go. We don't go towards actually distribution.
okay. I would like at some point, Dr. Lane, for us to revisit that. Dr. Lane's not here. But it would be great if you could share it, just for clarification, because now just looking in some of the national things, some of the groups have become very sophisticated on how to go around district policies and sharing and recommending these kinds of things to some of our students. And I think it would be great for us to eventually sometime kind of revisit that and make sure that it is not exposing any of our children to that information. I had another question. I can't find it, so that's it for me now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. We'll move on to the payments authorized. It's the blue sections, number 20 through 24. Mr. Sumter, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Not so much a question, but I did want to bring attention to item number 24, and that's the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, wanting the board to authorize its proper officers to make payment to the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, ASALH, and they will be providing a one-day training for civics teachers entitled How to Link Dimensions of African American Culture and Culturally Responsive Pedagogy to Social Studies Standards. This is a good item by the mere fact that we can utilize this organization, which is having their 97th annual conference here in Pittsburgh from September 26th through September 30th of this year at the Westin Convention Center Hotel. And this organization was responsible for founding Black History Month. It was started by Dr. Carter G. Woodson back on September 9th, 1915. And the fact that this organization has been around for a long time, committed to the cause, and the fact that we can involve them within the activities in the district is a good thing. And if anybody wants any more information about that, their web address is www.aslah.org, and it has information about the organization, information about the conference that's coming up here in Pittsburgh, and it's just a good thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you for that information, Mr. Sumter. Mr. McCray. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. On item number 20, and I know we just received superintendent's update, some information about the summer AP courses that we're offering, and I know that this is all part of the district's work to try to get more students involved in AP. At some point, I think it would be good, I know Ms. Shealy's not here, so I'll leave it up to Dr. Lane. At some point later in this year, it'd be, I think, worthwhile for the board to hear not only more about the summer program, but also about this, because it is something that we talked a lot about last year in terms of encouraging more students to get in AP courses, having more offerings of AP courses, and seeing students do better in terms of passing AP programs and testing later in the year. So I think anything we can do is good, and it would be good to have an update at some point. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley.
Yes, I too want to say that I'm glad to see item 20 and 24. But to talk a little bit, thank you for that information, Mr. Sumter, and giving that to the community. Can you tell me, though, for number 20, we talk a lot about AP courses and their exams, but is there any work being done to ensure that we have more students pass the IB exam as well?
There is. I would have to, Allison's not able to be with us tonight, McCarthy, and I have to get some specific information for you with her and Dr. Walter specifically around the work like this that goes with IB. I know that oftentimes when this type of training is offered, we extend it to our IB program teachers and students. So I can get you more information specific to these two tabs, what IB students have access to and if they have something similar.
Thank you.
Mr. Brentley. All righty. Moving on, we'll move on to the yellow section. It's general authorizations, number 25 through 39. Mr. Sumter, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. No questions or comments at this time. However, when it comes time for the items to be pulled for more further discussion at legislative, I would be recommending number 25 and 26 for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Mr. McCray.
I got it. Thank you. I just want to note on number 27, this is an MOU, but we own the product of this MOU, as well as Harvard. If you read through here, you'll find that, always look for that small print when I see that. And then on number 33, Go Pens. Unfortunately, they're locked out this year from playing hockey. I can't make any other statements on that. This is tremendous. This is one of the best things that any sports team can do for the district or for any kids anywhere, is just get them interested in the game and have fun, and that's what I tell the kids, have fun. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. And just to add to Mr. McCray's comment about the Penguins, the person, David Morehouse, who is president of the Penguins, is a graduate of the Pittsburgh Public School System. So it's always good to see our students excel in life as they do in school. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley.
Yes, I will be asking for an amendment to the equity plan that the district wants to have us approve, and it'll be specifically around the hiring practices. And I want to thank, I had made a statement to the central office personnel, specifically the superintendent, to either add or change, or I would not be able to support this. And she graciously did, added what I'm going to be asking for the amendment is some language that we have currently that we're asking to have us vote on in terms of the having diversity in our employment practices. And I want it to be added to the actual equity plan. And my reason for doing that, and I can say it now, is because we will actually be monitoring the equity plan. The school district will be giving us information on how well we are working towards our goals on this equity plan. So I'm glad that some language was given to me. It's not my language. It was language that was given to me by central office, and I do agree with it, and I will be bringing that amendment to the Board of Directors at the legislative meeting. Thank you.
Dr. Hawley, could we have it in advance so that we have a chance to,
Pardon me?
can we have it in advance so that we have a chance?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. Mrs. Fink?
I am good. However, Teresa has a question. On number 39, she wanted to know how many books we would be purchasing and what was the cost of the of like one book. Per book, I guess.
Okay, the first part of that I have, the second part I'm going to have to get back to you on. I can't, it's not coming to me. There'd be a book purchase for every eighth grader that is enrolled in 2013-14. This book actually goes into place in the fall of next year.
Okay.
Okay?
Do we have a rough estimate?
Roughly 2,000.
Okay.
Roughly 2,000. And then I have to get back to you on the cost. That actually slipped my mind, but I can get that information to you, probably not before tonight ends. I just have to go back and read through the materials.
Well, get it to Teresa, not to
Okay.
me.
Well, anybody else want that information? I'll send it to all of you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fink. Mr. Brentley?
Yes, Dr. Lane, tell me the difference between 25 and 26. Now, I understand 26, but we got another catchy phrase, getting to all. What's the difference? I thought that was pretty much 26.
Oh, sorry. The Getting to All plan is actually number 25. And the 26 is the memorandum of understanding that we're asking you to approve with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. And actually, that memorandum is behind the tabs.
I understand that. I'm thinking, what is number 25?
25 is the Getting to All plan that we presented to you, I think, about 3 weeks ago.
Okay, but that was the equity plan.
Right, that's it.
Okay, so why is it called, why do we have two separate items?
Well, you have two items to approve because one is just, even though the equity plan itself did not require board approval, because there's nothing in there that, you know, would require specific board approval, we wanted you to endorse that plan, so that's what 25 is. 26 is the memorandum of understanding with the Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission. So they're actually two different documents.
But what do, my understanding, and I thought at the meeting we were going through, and it was actually said that we were going through the equity plan, and they clarified it towards the end of the meeting, and so I'm just wondering what was different. You mean the PowerPoint was the Getting to the All, but the PowerPoint was pretty much highlighting the equity plan.
Right.
And so why do we have two separate items? I just,
Okay, there are two separate things. That's why they're two separate items. The plan that we presented on is actually a written document that describes how we plan to address the issues we have around a racial academic disparity we've had for a long time. And that plan was one of the things that I had in my goals that you all agreed, that the board approved. And so one of my goals was to develop that plan. And so that's what that is.
okay, so that's more of a, contractual item. Okay,
Yes.
that's confusing to me, okay.
Yeah, and then the 26 is because our conciliation agreement had lapsed, and we wanted to go forward and continue our work with our equity advisory panel and with the support of the Pittsburgh Human Relations Commission. And so that's what the memorandum of understanding
Okay,
is
yeah,
about.
I'm clear on that.
Okay.
Okay. Now, my concern, doctor, is I'm just hoping there's no gray area between the two. When it comes time for accountability from the district, that we not waver between, while this is part of the equity plan, and this is the one for Get Out for All, or Getting for All, or whatever. And you know, that's why it concerns me here. We should be operating off of one document where the public and the Equity Advisory Panel can clearly see our marching orders and whose roles and responsibilities and where we should be. We should not be able to put another instrument there that when we don't make our mark, that we can say, well, no, that's the part of this. And so I really believe it should be almost a pull-out, standalone. This is a contractual thing on what you were required to do, and that's kind of confusing putting it here with the equity plan. And you know, because this thing is really getting out of control. Even though we're going for another 2 years, it's something that should have been resolved years ago. And so that's confusing to me. And so, I mean, I hope you understand what I'm saying. I mean, this is your thing. This is your contractual thing, should be with you. And yes, you've accomplished that, and you can get the credit for it, but I don't want it to get in the way of what we're attempting to hopefully bring closure to with the Equity Advisory Plan, because it was I remember the PowerPoint presentation, it was pretty much echoing what the advisory panel was either going to do or doing or trying to do, and the marks that we either missed or hit. And so it's one and the same, but I just don't want folks to pull anything differently. Okay, let me just go on to this. Mr. Weiss, we did not include the recommendations that I made concerning some assistance for the Equity Advisory Panel, and that is providing a separate pot of dollars to assist the committee and panel, whatever they needed, making available some cell phones, some laptops, a copy machine, et cetera. That was not included in this plan?
Correct, it was not.
Okay. Can I get this to you over the weekend, and can we have that included, or is it necessary to amend that on the floor as well?
Necessary to amend it on the floor because the document is before you. If you wish to offer an amendment at the meeting to include that, it would have to be in the form of an amendment. My understanding is that at the presentation to the board some weeks ago, this was discussed, and the chair indicated that the panel had no desire for these items. I wasn't there, Jocelyn Kramer was there. But to answer your question, if you wish it to be considered, it would have to be in the form of an amendment.
Okay. We never even we didn't get to that in terms of to the panel. You received a response from the panel that they did not want the support items? Because I did not receive anything or hear anything.
And I think Ms. Burgess reached out to the panel and asked them about this, and they indicated they did not.
Okay. We have that in writing?
I don't know that we have it in writing. It was verbal.
Okay. If someone can get that in writing where they say that they don't need it, then I won't submit that on the floor.
Okay,
That
we
would
can
be
do
very
that.
helpful. Thank you. Number 30, this is the changing of the policies. I had concerns in the past. Will not be supporting this policy. Madam Chair, I want to present to you that I want to encourage you in the strongest language possible that we have to find a way to offer consistency and providing which items that are presented and approved. This is an item, of course, second time, maybe even third time, presented by the chair, Mr. Eisler. Each and every time, or he's able to present changing policies, and it concerns me because I think years go into putting our policies together, but we take 1 or 2 days and we can come back and change it and change the language. And besides that, I don't know any other board member who can submit documents and just get a whole swoop of things approved, and it's not consistent. I have tried many times in the past to try to get minor things approved, and I've been met with a major force from this board. So I am suggesting again that no one should have preferential treatment when he or she wants to introduce anything, and we should find a way. I know that item is coming before us, and I want to encourage you as the board president. We are all board members, and we all have the right to submit things to be considered. Regardless of what some may think about it, we have to find a way. If someone feels strongly about it, if they're presenting it, then it should be a serious consideration. Not one person have the authority to just change major policies. It's not the way the Board of Directors should work. So I'm just asking that you consider, I will not be supporting it, but I'm asking that we find a way to make this special privilege available to all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Our practice has been, for the 5 years that I've, well, not for the 5 years, but the last few years, that the policy committee meets with members of the administration, the legal team, office staff, people who are impacted by the specific policy being discussed at that time. They are systematically working their way through all the policies because it had been so long since they were updated, other than when we were led through it by our legal department to put us in with regulations, in agreement with regulations. Following their extensive hours and hours of meetings and groundwork, it does come before the board, and we do typically have a meeting doing nothing but hearing an overview of the policies being updated. And then only after that meeting does it come before us and we have a chance to vet it at agenda review and then finally vote on it at legislative. So most of these things that come before us as policies are actually months in the work from the time the committee initially meets and discusses them and goes through. Now, I know there are some things listed on the board in the board office that we want attention drawn to when they get to that segment of the policies. And so if there's anything specific you're concerned about, you might want to put it on the board, because I know I myself have a few things on the board that I would like them to look at when they get to that segment, because they are trying to systematically as much as possible. There are things that come up out of order because of some item that comes up, or I think most of the ones that come out of order are at the recommendation of the law office. But I don't want to say that's the only time, because I could misspeak easily just because my memories are not always super.
I just want to say, I appreciate the response, great response for television, but in reality.
That is reality.
But in reality, this chair, Mr. Eisler, my friend, has been able to, at the touch of any document, present items, get it through quickly, and it is voted on. And we dare not to question nor challenge him. And I'm saying it is not consistent. It is not good for the Board of Education as an institution, because there are many, many years and meetings and reasons for why that policy was in place, and for one person to come and cross out this language and add this and put this here and then change this. And with all due respect to our solicitor, Ira Weiss can sign off 15 times. But it is still not good for public policy to be developed in that kind of fashion. It has happened many times, and most recently, just a year or so ago, it was the changing of the policy that lowered the standards for our students, sent shockwaves to this city, and it just wasn't necessary. And so when I try to suggest and to present things, it's thrown, you got to do this, you got to jump through this, and you got to jump through this. I have never had the nerve to try to change a whole section of a policy, as if to wipe out what the previous board members and boards have put together for this great school district. It's just not good business. It's not the way that you do it. And I understand why you have to say what you say, but in reality, it is not that. And so, we can agree to just simply disagree.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brentley, for voicing your opinion. That concludes the committee on, oh, did I skip you? Oh, okay. That concludes the Committee on Education, and we will move over to the Committee on Business and Finance, and we will ask Mr. Joseph to give us an overview.
Thank you, Ms. Azuda. Under consultants and contracted services, there's one purchasing item. Item 1 is for the up to amounts awarded for the purchase of various computer equipment and supplies for pre-printed school list. These amounts are estimates, and orders will only be placed on an as-needed basis. Item 2 is for the installation of variable frequency drives at Brashear. There are also 4 technology and software-related items. Item 3 is for a contract for warranty of the support of warranty and support of district telephone equipment. Item 4 is a license renewal for SchoolWire's web hosting services. Item 6 is a contract to purchase the BoardMaker Plus computer software package. And item 7 is a contract renewal for E-Rate program consulting. Item 5 is for the purchase of a new swimming scoreboard at Obama. Item 8 is a contingency contract for an accounts payable recovery audit. Item 9 is for the installation of an ADA lift for the pool at Alderdice, and the removal and installation of pool blocks and for an ADA lift at Obama. Item 10, which is for the energy efficiency upgrades associated with the investment grade audit that was performed by Snyder Electric. This item is being pulled. Item 10. After further review, it's been determined that we'll work with the board to develop a more comprehensive facilities plan that will include, but not be limited to, energy conservation measures. And finally in the section, items 11 through 14 are board action items for additional support that the communications and technology teams will need in order to provide web streaming services and writing support for districts, starting with the November 15th State of District event. Under payments authorized, item 15 is for daily payments. Item 16 is for additions and deductions for various projects. Primarily, a large chunk of that is for waterproofing work at Alderdice. Item 17 is for online technical courses for network technicians and network security administrators. Item 18 is for video hosting and web streaming services for the district. And lastly in the section, item 19 is for flu shots for district employees. And finally, in the general authorization section, item 20 is for the district's 2013 healthcare, dental, and vision rates. There's one correction needed to this item. The increase for all Highmark health plans in the narrative should read 4.81% and not 5.12%. Item 21 is a placeholder for, okay. So under the narrative, not in the actual action tab, the increase for health plans on the narrative should read 4.81% and not 5.12%. Moving on to item 21, this is a placeholder for the district contract for natural gas. In an attempt to maximize natural gas savings in a declining natural gas market, bids are due on Tuesday, September 25th. The bid results will be reviewed and provided to you at the executive session prior to the September 26th legislative meeting, and these results will be read into the minutes at the legislative table. Item 22 is an amendment due to an increased need because of a turnover in the finance area. Item 23 is an amendment for the scope of work for the data conversion from Encore to IEP Writer. Item 24 is an contract amendment for legal services. Item 25 is a resolution authorizing the district to handle its errors and omissions claims on a self-insured basis. And finally, item 26 is a memorandum of understanding with the Adagio Health to support the Power Up Eat Right nutrition program. Thank you, Ms. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph. Mr. Campbell, there is quite a bit on here for information technology. Can you kind of give us more information, tie it together for us?
I would be happy to. The pre-printed list is an annual list presented to the board for purchases made locally locally at the school level. Item number 3, SmartNet, is the annual renewal for maintenance for our voice voice over IP system. Number 4 is the renewal for School Wires, our website. Number 6, number 6 is a software package used for communication purposes in the special ed area. Number 7 is the contract that we have with TRIT Consulting, our E-rate consultant, to make sure that we are in line with E-rate policies and that we can continue to leverage the E-rate benefit for the district. And again, to date, we've realized over $20 million using that service, that federal service. That's number 7, I believe. Number 17, that's computer-based training for 2 of our network technicians. We have made significant upgrades, and we are continuing to make significant upgrades to our network, and we really have to make sure that our techs have the requisite skill set to support the upgraded network. And I believe that those were all of the IT items. What about 18? 18? I'm sorry. 18, that was.
So you want me to address 18? Please. Okay. I would actually like to see if Dave Skalniak wants to jump in here, because this is going to help us with how we see our videos on our website. This is Kaltura.
Okay. Kaltura is a service that will be able to provide for us not only what we presently do. If you see, we have this site called PPS Tube. They'll be able to store all of our pre-recorded or record it and store it type, like this meeting tonight. Once we would approve this and get it set up, the meeting can go out live, and then once it's done, it's immediately archived. Someone could go literally a minute later and then be able to access the meeting from the beginning. They also will then provide us our means to be able to stream anything we want to do live. I think we have enough hours that anything like a board meeting, any type of function within reason, I think approval coming out of whatever office, but would allow us to stream this stuff live and be an external source so that we have much more comprehensive and much more robust of a network on their end with servers and with network equipment to allow this to be something that's seamless and it's not going to die on us when we're in the middle of something. So, oh, I'm sorry, Dave Skalniak, Media Services Manager, Office of Technology.
Thank you, Mr. Skalniak. So with the exception of that one and the training one, all these other expenses are basically annual expenses that we could expect to see every September.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. We're going to start this report with Mr. McCray.
Thank you. We had a very robust meeting of the Business and Finance Committee this week. I just want to reiterate a little bit of what Mr. Joseph said about number 1, because the way I understand this is it's sort of a catalog where schools can purchase these items through the IT department. Am I correct, Mr. Campbell?
They actually make the purchases through vendors with their approval of the IT department, yes.
And it's like they have option of 3 different laptops in here, so you don't set the parameters. The school can have a choice, so they can be flexible in their education. Is it
correct?
And that's what I like to see. It's a great idea. I know you pulled number 10, but that was a real hard one. You know, you had to twist my arm to do that one, didn't you? But Mr. Joseph, anything with energy savings, you know, I'm going to be jumping on. But it is very important that we bring this back to committee and discuss it, because when we're tearing a building apart, we should look at the comfort level that we're going to put back in the building. Dr. Lane pointed out a very good point. The acoustic ceiling in here makes it a lot easier to understand each other as we're talking in the room. but a hard ceiling in a classroom, sometimes the teacher's yelling at the top of her voice all day long, creating a lot of stress. And that actually increases our healthcare costs. So everything is kind of interconnected here. So I want to bring this back to committee. We're going to discuss it again and see if we can't do more than just these improvements to the buildings. That's all I have in that section. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCraven. We'll continue asking questions on the pink pages, numbers 1 through 14. Mr. Eisler?
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. I too hope that 10 comes back in some form. I think it is a very, very interesting concept for this district. I had a lot of questions about it and wait, but I do think it's an interesting concept to see if we can spend now to save later. Let me just go again to number 1 so that I understand this. The money that is being put into this pool for schools to buy computer equipment, is the money in the budget? It's part of our operating budget for the 2012-2013 school budget?
The money you see before you in that bid tab was the amount that was put together where we could create a bid form and a bid request to vendors. And it gives the parameters of up to dollar amounts, and then there will be individual budgets then would access that from budgets they built. So, Mr. Eisler, the answer to your question is no, these are not in the operating budget for 12-13.
Why not?
They would be in the schools' operating budgets, and they would have built them when they were using their discretionary funds. So there may be parts of it that are in budgets. They'll use that when they go access the pre-print list to then place their orders to use the authorization you're providing in up to amounts today.
Questions, and you're getting to the one. One is the schools have already put in requests or know what they want, so that's in here.
They would have already built their budgets with anticipating purchases.
Yes, sir. The second thing is somewhere within our budget, this money is allocated to do this. This is not an add-on to the existing budget that this board passed last year. It's within.
Correct.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Thank you, Mr. Sumter.
Dr. Holly?
Yes, number 5, I want to thank you for putting a new scoreboard in Peabody's swim area. Oh, my. Parents will be very happy about that. But to ask me, I'm not sure if there is seating for visitors within the pool area. Is there for spectators?
I'll have to follow up, and I'm not sure. I think it's just one common side of seating.
Just bleachers?
I think so.
Is that for the spectators?
I think there's, I'd have to make sure. We'll provide information.
Okay. Because if not, I'm hoping that someone will do something about that, because now we have, they have a really big swim team at Obama. And it's not just the high school, but it's also for the middle school students as well. And we also have, since, they participate with university prep, those students come there as well. So I'm hoping that there's, room for everyone to participate in that. Now, I know you pulled number 10, but I have to ask the question, why was even Pittsburgh Lincoln Intermediate on, do we fix the closed schools too? Or was that just a mistake?
We were looking to see what was going on overall. I think there might have been a misrepresentation of what we were doing.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
Thank you, Dr. Hawley. Mrs. Fink, Mrs. Khaleesi.
Thank you. If I could go back to number 1, I'm a little confused. Does technology buy the equipment for the schools, or do the schools buy the equipment for the schools?
The schools buy the equipment for the schools.
Okay, so when we bought 6,000 iPads, that didn't come out of the schools, that came out of, so explain where that line is for me, please.
So in the schools, schools may need what I would refer to as consumables, things that they may have a shortage of or need to replace throughout the year. These are items like periphery items in support of the iPad deployment. cables, you have laptops in here, you have specified smart boards, different flavors of laptops that may meet individual needs for specific programs, or in some cases, unfunded mandates of grants that they participate in. So these are activities that happen within the school that may not be planned for in the overall IT plan.
Okay, I guess what I'm looking for is like, where's that line? Like, no, that's not what I'm asking. What I mean is like, where is that line of where IT makes the purchase or the school makes the purchase?
And so when a school has a request against the pre-printed list, we are contacted to make sure that that item is not covered in the overall technology plan and purchases at the central office level. So they tell us what the immediate need is, and we can see if we can meet that need immediately in what we have in stock or a plan. And if not, then it's purchased via the pre-printed list.
So just for the sake of me understanding, I'm school A, and I need, I don't know, 100 computers replaced because they're old and broken. Do I call you, and how does it work? Tell me how it works.
So I believe you just identified the key right there. With 100 computers, that would be handled at the central office level, at the technology level. If it's 2, 3, or 4, or a small number of computers, the school can handle that through their budget and purchase off the pre-printed list.
Does it still then go through IT? Like, you keep referring to a pre-something list, okay? So they have to have the money in their budget to buy 2 or 3 more computers?
Yes, and we're involved to make sure that standards are adhered to so we can actually support the items.
So like all of these items that are bid in here, who's getting these? How are these being distributed? Like all of these items you have on this list on number 1, how do they get distributed?
So it's not that they're being distributed. This is, like Mr. McRae mentioned originally, it's the catalog. These are items that we know that schools often use. And so if they come up short 1 or 2 items throughout the school year, they can use this list to purchase those items. And this is just an up to amount. This is not saying that we're going to buy so many of Xerox audio-visual items. This is just a pre-approved list that the price has already been negotiated, that the school can leverage to address shortfalls for small quantities. So it's not that this is a guaranteed purchase.
Okay, so this is simply what you went out there and got bids for, these items, and you'll have the ability to get them, not necessarily you're buying them and putting them somewhere. That didn't come off to me the way, okay. So back here where I saw 2 more carts on page 3 of 15, it's under the suppliers. These 2 carts are just in case they're needed. Is that what, sorry.
Yes, just in case they're needed. It's not a definite we will purchase these.
Okay, so can I ask you this? Do you have any idea how many old computers we have out there that need replaced? Because we had this conversation and
I don't have that information with me right now, but yes, we do. And as we've briefed in the technology update several months ago, we have a plan moving forward. So phase 1, we wanted to address the student getting devices in students' hands. Phase 2 will be addressing those teacher PCs and lab PCs that we need to replace.
Okay, so remember when we talked about the laptops, and one of the things was that, were we going to replace computers with laptops? Is that the future that we were going? Is that the case? Is that where you're going?
That's the trend, yes. But it's not something that you can just go cold turkey with those devices, because We really have to work with the academic department to make sure that the teachers are prepared and that the technology is written into the curriculum.
Okay, so just so I'm clear on this list of stuff that you have listed here, these are not items that are actually purchased. These are items that you have a price on, that if schools need them, they have a specific price and a place they can go buy it.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So if I may move on, please. On number 3, can you tell me exactly what SmartNet warranty is? What is it?
So SmartNet is just the brand name that Cisco system uses for their maintenance agreements. Cisco systems, they're the largest networking provider, covering more than 90% of the market share, and this is just how they brand their maintenance.
So this is Cisco.
Yes. The actual product is called Cisco SmartNet.
So does it cover the whole district, even though it's just because Cisco's?
It covers the district telephone system, yes.
The whole district's telephone system?
The district VoIP telephone system.
Yeah, I still don't get that part. Okay. Okay. Number 5. So we're buying a scoreboard, forgive me, for Obama at Peabody. Did we have one at Obama at Reisenstein?
No.
We never had a scoreboard there.
I don't remember the exact answer, but I believe if it was there, it wasn't sufficient to meet the needs of this new competition type team we have. Because that was one of actually Dr. Lane's questions earlier.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, with all the schools we've closed, where are those kinds of, go ahead.
I did try, Mrs. Khaleesi, to see if we had one at a closed school that would suffice, and they looked and said no.
Okay. Okay. So on number 8, this is for the recovery. Can anybody tell me when was the last time we had recovery? I mean, it says that the rate of payment is 50% of the recovery. When was the last time we had recovery, and what kind of money are we talking about?
We'll put together a summary because we'll put together a summary of past activities and the benefits from this.
Yeah, I'm looking like the last
No,
time,
we'll have some-
actually.
We'll have something for you.
Okay, thank you. So on number 9, this ADA lift pool is actually at Peabody.
There are 2 ADA lifts. There's one at Alderdice
Right.
and one at the Peabody facility, which is now
It's the
Obama.
Peabody facility, that's what I wanted to know. Okay. Okay, that's it for the pink, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mr. Brentley.
Mr. Joseph, just a quick question. Our packet here before us, how many African Americans, how many women-owned businesses, and how many small businesses? Doesn't have to be exact, but just if you can generalize it. And also, to you, Mr. Campbell, as well, quite a few items here. Women do not know technology, or have we considered service providers for some of the items before us in terms of women and other minorities?
Absolutely. A part of the key issue that you brought to light is that there are not a lot of women involved in technology. That's just across the board. And so when we do have initiatives, we do try to reach out to local companies to see what companies are available that we could possibly partner with.
That's the same as for African Americans as well?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I am certain that after this show, this meeting tonight, you should get some calls. And it would really be great. I know that there is a smaller effort, and I cannot recall the name. And actually, Dr. Lane, we had a program here in the district where we went after young ladies in the district for those, why am I forgetting it? And I don't know if, is that what it is? Where they worked with them, they took them in math and sciences, took them over to the Science Center and really prepared them and geared them for those non-traditional positions of technology and IT and that sort of stuff. I thought we had a program. Please tell me it hasn't been cut.
Yeah, you're correct. There was a grant that we had through CTE, I know specifically, to help attract more females into STEM fields, science, technology.
We still have it. It's still going on.
I know it was a grant. I don't know for sure if that, I can't say it, but we can find out and let you know what the status is on
Okay.
that.
Well, Mr. Joseph, if you could, unless you have some numbers.
For our construction contract at Brashear for the variable air handlers, the MBE involvement is at around $124,000, so that's around 33% involvement.
Now, that's just for the one job there, right?
Oh, yeah, that's for the contract.
That's period. That's what you have in this report here. Here's the simplest way for me, and I think for the folks in the viewing audience. If this packet here today, it adds up to $4 million for this month, I'd like to know how many checks are we cutting this month that we will mail out to women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and/or small businesses. And if you can break it down like that, that's, for me, it's simple. And it's very, very helpful for me to understand. So maybe if we can do something for the legislative meeting. And I just think it's important because a lot of times people they hear the numbers, they hear the services, they hear what's being offered and provided, but we don't know the real dollars in terms of are we really supporting those different categories in terms of businesses. And I have major concerns that we're not doing as much what we should be doing, but in any case, those things should be shared. So it'd be helpful if you can share that maybe at our legislative and just we can have numbers and I can give a drum roll and we can announce it.
And just to expand it to the whole packet, the overall commitments in the consultants and contractors section this month is $509,588.50, and the total EBE commitments for this month, that's $124,651.
Okay, that's helpful. That's a little easier for us for visualization. So thank you. That'd be very helpful if we can share that every month on that level. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Mr. Campbell, if you could, on item number 6, the Trit Shell Consulting. Just for clarification purposes, you mentioned about the $20 million. If you could explain how the district realizes that money?
Each year, our schools qualify for E-rate funding based on the level of free and reduced lunch in that school, and mapped to that is an award granted by the federal government, anywhere from 70 to 90% based on the school population. And so every year we apply based on our student enrollment. And we work with our consultant to strategize how we could best leverage those dollars to upgrade our network infrastructure. You can only use those dollars for networking type hardware or services such as bandwidth or cell phone services. So that's the limitation with E-rate. But again, we've been very successful in working with the consultant and have realized a significant amount we've been able to leverage to upgrade our infrastructure.
Okay, now when it says the district received, where does that money come from?
So if a school is awarded 90%, then the FCC, the government, pays the 90% and we pay the 10.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Moving on to the blue section, payment authorized, numbers 15 through 19. Mr. McCray?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Mr. Eisler?
No questions, thank you, Mrs. Azuda.
Dr. Hawley?
No questions.
Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Khaleesi?
On number 17, this is technology training, I think, right?
That is correct.
Okay, and does everybody in technology get training, or is it, how does that work too?
And so our strategy is to build skill set within the organization to where the folks who actually received the web-based training can operate in the train-the-trainer model. So once the folks that receive this training, they will provide training for the staff, remaining staff of the IT department. This is the more cost-effective way to get training for IT.
I'm
web-based.
sorry, so this is specific training of specific technology?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm going to go back to something that I made an issue of a little while ago. You know, we bought those iPads, and I was very adamant about making sure that there was training that went with that iPad for the classrooms. Can you update me at all on where that is? Do you have any idea?
And so a part of the iPad contract was the hiring of a full-time Apple consultant to work with the Office of Instructional Technology to provide PD for the teachers. As of yesterday, I was informed that the first and second round interviews for that position have been completed, and the instructional technology team plans to make a recommendation to fill that position by the end of the week.
I'm sorry, Mr. Campbell. Forgive me, because I'm not, I didn't realize it was going through a personnel position.
So this is actually an Apple hire. This is not.
Oh, okay. So that was part of the contract, you're saying?
Yes, and we
Okay.
have a voice in the hiring of that person.
Okay, so that person's gonna be on board for how long?
1 year.
Can he come to my house? Okay, because sometimes I want to throw it across the room. So so this training that you're doing with this, that I thought was more, I didn't realize it was specific training. So when you say the trainer does the training, how are you sure that everybody gets that training?
So we have been working, our director's been working very hard with their teams to develop training plans. And these training plans will result in career certifications. And so we have areas of specialization within IT, networking, server administration. And so with every training, there's a level of certification, industry certification, that can be obtained. And so that's the measurement that we know.
Sorry. Okay, so what I'm trying to make sure, I guess, as I'm directing my questions to you, is that I don't know what specialized training you're talking about here, but what I'm hoping that is the end result is that whatever the training is happening, everybody's getting trained. So, and I understand that technology it's become almost like medical field. It's so specialized, but sometimes you feel like, everybody should know how to work the iPad. Okay? So that's what I'm interested in. Does everybody know how to work the iPad? So when you go into a school, a teacher then is taught what to do, because at the end of the day, I want to make sure that teacher from technology, that person from technology can train that teacher to work that iPad so those students aren't the ones training us.
And so,
Yeah, I
in
know.
fact, the first 2 weeks of October, the teachers will be receiving their training on the iPads, and the iPads will be delivered post-training. So, you sort of have to prove yourself to make sure you get the device in for integration.
So I take it that at this point, because I didn't hear that the iPads have finally been decided on where they were going to be distributed Did we get that information that I don't know about? We got that?
I don't remember seeing it. I don't remember seeing it.
Would you mind just throwing it back? Just that piece of information. I just want to know where it went and that. And for that matter, if you could add to this, just because I want to make sure whatever hands these go into, whatever teachers, they actually know what they're doing when it goes into the classroom, okay? I really don't want to hear, and I'm afraid of this, that a teacher doesn't know what they're doing and hands it to a child that tells them what to do with it. That's, and I know that's gonna happen. I mean, we do it all the time ourselves, but that's, okay? But, you know, and have we ever, do we bid any of this stuff, or does this, how does this work, this training thing? Do you have to go to a specific thing, or is that bid? How does that work? Like,
So with the training, we leverage the GSA schedule. And so on the GSA schedule, it's the government schedule of accounting, government service. It's like the catalog, the pre-printed list that everything has already been negotiated. And so you can leverage that to make sure you're getting the best price.
so you just pick from that list?
Yes,
And you just pick the best priced one? Do you look at least?
and quality. and
Thank
quality.
you, that was gonna be the next, how much money does technology spend on training? And I'm talking about, again, from top down, because I'm more interested.
I don't have that actual number, but I can get that for you. But I can tell you, at a high level, the technology budget is less than 1% of the overall budget, and the training budget is less than the training portion of that is less than 1% of that. So these are very specialized training needs that we are targeting to fill a specific need because of a change we're making in the network or a technology.
Okay, and I get that, but again, I'm gonna go back to that technology going down into the classroom. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I realize the technology that everybody needs around this table to pull reports or whatever they do, but I'm interested in the technology being brought into the classroom. Okay, on number 18, and I'm gonna ask you to tell me this in as plain English as you possibly can. I know, I'm trying to, I mean, I was very impressed to see that 86% of our families have access to internet. I mean, that would just blew me away, because we always think that there's such a small amount, but I guess as we spoke of the iPhones and the iPads and all of that, can you explain to me this board tab and
Okay, I'm going to have Dave jump in, but one thing, because Dave Skalniak, but he did try to mention this at the beginning of the meeting. I don't know, maybe you had stepped out. But the one thing that I want to make sure to call out on this particular item is the
Oh, I know what this is. Never mind, I got it. I got it.
You know, right now, you go to our homepage and you have to get, one of the things that people watch the most or go to our website for the most, where we have the best traffic, are our videos. Okay, so we want to, you know, in order for us to be relevant and engaging to people and get them to use our website more and learn more about us and stay with us, we want to be able to do more videos. Right now, we have a limitation because when you go to look at a video, you have to go to YouTube. And so to go to YouTube, it takes you off our website and you watch that video and now you're in YouTube world.
Yeah.
We want to keep them on our website, watching the videos on our website so that they go not to YouTube world, but to other places within our website. This is going to allow us to not have to get people to go to YouTube. There were all the other things that Dave mentioned at the beginning, but that's the one that I think is really important.
And didn't it used to be that way? It used to be we didn't have to go to YouTube.
In an earlier rendition, I think this goes back to when we were hosting, before we got Schoolwires, when we were hosting the website internally, we had the capability, for whatever reason, because I don't always understand it myself from the technical standpoint, but we had the capability of doing that. Once we started hosting it externally, that became more of a problem. Again, for reasons I don't, that's why we
Okay,
have
that's
filled on the
kind of
whole.
where I need the English. What do you mean by internally and
Okay,
externally?
right now, and Mark, if you can jump in where necessary. Right now, our website itself is not hosted. Basically, the information is not hosted on the south side in the server form down there. That information is all stored externally so that people, especially outside of this area, can access it quicker. Plus, there is multiple levels of redundancy so that, say a train car it derails and goes into the building down on 12th Street, we don't have to worry about the website being down. The same issue goes here. If we host this externally, we have much more redundancy. We have much less of a chance of failure. There are multiple points of backup. A lot of these companies that we deal these services with might have a place, say, someplace like Texas, but also have a second set of servers out on the West Coast, and they're redundant. They're both seeing the same thing. They're both mirroring each other. So this way, short of a major disaster in the country, we're always live.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Khaleesi. Mr. Brentley.
Yes, Dave, don't go, please. Quick question. Now, Dave, with this new service, does that mean that viewers can now see this meeting in real time?
That is the intention. We will get past the event in November 1st and get things rung out. And but yes, we will eventually. That will be our biggest use of this particular one part of what we're paying into. We'll be able to have people at home see this in real time as it's happening. And that was one of the biggest sellers for me, for instance, because this is something we do twice a month, and anybody that wants to watch it either has to wait till Thursday night to watch it on television,
Right.
or till I get finished cleaning all this up and get it posted to YouTube.
Right. Well, and the next question is for Mr. Campbell. This is $11,200. This is for 1 year with this company, Coltura, 1 year? Coltura, just 1 year contract?
Yes.
Okay. You mean to tell me we could not reach out to our neighbors next door, CMU, and partner? They do not have this capacity, and possibly could not work with us on this rate, or even do it as a community out. I don't know, but I mean, we did not have any conversations with them at all. But I don't know if that's for you to answer. I'm sorry.
And so, Mr. Brentley, I've been contacting CMU, the city, any organization around the district to see where we can possibly establish those relationships that will work for us. You could consider this a interim step for us because it takes time to work out who owns the data, security, especially for our more sensitive systems. And I believe the big win for this service this year is that all of our commencement ceremonies will be recorded and available via the website. Dr. Lane said make sure that happens. So, but this is just an interim step toward moving toward real-time, online viewing possibilities of meetings and our video services.
Okay. Well, in reaching out, I would just encourage you to continue to reach out to CMU and also kind of explore the possibilities if there's an opportunity for a student partnership. We have some young students in this district, I mean, that knows this technology in and out, and CMU is creative, they're our neighbors, and I can just imagine, an 8 to 10 committee that would work closely with your office and CMU and hosting this and monitoring it, and who knows, may be able to pick up some credits towards when they decide to go to school. But please do not overlook our extremely talented student body that they have. They may not know anything else, but they know this technology, and we have to find a way to to try to tap into it. So, okay, thanks. Well, we'll just, it's one of those, let it develop kind of thing. Keep it going. Okay, thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you.
No, just one quick question. Where did they get the number? 86% of the people have access?
Everybody's got an iPhone.
80s? What,
Everybody's
is this
got
in general? Who provided this number?
I believe my team did.
And how did you arrive at that? Where did you get your information from?
We have been doing our parent survey every year, and that number's been trending up. I think like 2 years ago it was at 78%, and we reported it then. And we asked people to let us know if they have access to the internet, and it has been trending up. That is why we're trying to, especially in this time of financial challenges, move more and more things to the website. But we understand that we still need to offer alternatives because not everybody can access the internet. So we still understand that, but it is encouraging that there are more and more people that have access to the internet through, as I think Mrs. Khaleesi said, probably less traditional devices than what maybe I might use.
Well, you know, I am going to say that I'm going to believe that this is not an accurate number. I understand your staff worked very hard. But you know what I really think it is? I think now that a lot of parents, it is trendy. Hey, can you get me on you got the internet? I got it. You know what I mean? Everybody wants to say that they're with it. And I know folks who don't have access. And I know there are pockets of them. It would be wonderful if that number really reflected the accurate number, but I just think it is something that no one wants to be embarrassed to say that they don't have. Yes, I have this, and yes, I have that, but that is very, very hard to believe. But if it is, that would be wonderful, but I just think we can find another way to make sure that's accurate, because if it is, then, you know, you can do a lot through that, if it's true, but it's just hard for me to believe. That's all I had to
Did you
answer
ask
to.
where
I
the
don't know.
access was? Was it at their home, at the library, or do they just have access?
That's a very good question, Dr. Hawley. The way the question was worded was, do they have access? So they could have access at the library, they could have access at work, they could have access at the school. The question was worded, do you have access? This year's survey goes further to ask how people prefer to receive information. We just got that data in, and we're tabulating it now, and we'll be sharing that with you as well.
Righty, thank you. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Asuda. Really don't have any questions or comments, but just to piggyback on what the discussion was just now, the statement does say 86% of our families have access to the internet at home. That's what it says on the piece of paper here.
Well, then I'll go back and check that just to be sure, Mr. Sumter.
Now, if at home means outside of the district, home is the library, Wi-Fi site, I have access in my hand, whichever. But to me, the percentage is important, not where, because the internet is everywhere, all over the place. But the main thing is to have access. And as those campaigns have been started up with Comcast and with the mayor and Superintendent Lane, as far as to try to get equipment into the hands of individuals, and when we ever have used equipment, to make sure we partner up with that initiative also, that even old computers can get to the internet. There's some old ones that still might not be as fast as what people want, but they still are capable of doing things that people need to have done. So it doesn't surprise me, for as long as the internet's been out there, for all these decades now. But hopefully it gets to 100%, and hopefully maybe this board goes paperless at some time. Well, that's another issue. Let's move on. Thank you, Mrs. Asuda.
Say what? We'll move on to Yellow Pages, General Authorizations, number 20 through 26. And we'll start with you, Mr. McCray.
Thank you. I just want to point out on number 20 that the staff and Triad have done some very tremendous work on this. I know that one item, they negotiated a savings of $300,000. Am I correct?
Yes, yes.
This is tremendous. And I want to thank Triad and tell them to keep up the good work, and the staff as well. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Eisler?
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Let me pick up on 20, and I'm not, I appreciate the savings. I'm more concerned about building the 13 budget, which I assume you're working on now. When you saw these increases, were they within the range of what you anticipated, higher, lower?
They were within range because we were working with Triad over quite a bit of time, so it had a little bit of positive result for us, better than what we even were trending, so we even did save a little more money than what we were building in, but it was very close.
Thank you. On 21, the last time we did this, natural gas prices were higher than they are now, and you pointed that out in your overview, Mr. Joseph. I'm just wondering, in a declining market, you're only going out 2 years?
I think that is just a 24-month bid, yes.
And we will see those before the legislative meeting?
Correct.
Okay. Last question is to the solicitor. I believe it's a self-insurance item on number 25. Errors and omissions. Do we have many claims, Mr. Weiss, on an annual basis? I mean, maybe excuse me, but maybe when you go into the answers why we're doing this on a self-insured basis. I'm concerned about claims, the cost effectiveness of this, how that works out for us.
Well, that's exactly what's behind this. The district does have claims because this encompasses employment practices claims. The reality of the market is that, for instance, for entities this large, as Pittsburgh Public Schools, the deductible retention, as it's called, is quite high, both in terms of the indemnity portion, that is the claim they pay, and the defense costs. So the reality is that I did an analysis of this with the superintendent's office and with Mr. Camarda, and we determined that over the past several years, the district has in fact borne the cost of defense and claims. We've never breached the deductible on any claim. It was our conclusion that doing this, recommending this, would save the premium, which is in excess of $100,000, and would better enable us to manage the defense of these claims in a more cost-efficient way, because with carriers, you're bound to use counsel that they designate. And so we believe this is the most optimum way to handle this.
From the risk-reward analysis, you're satisfied that you think that this will benefit the school district? And we're doing this, I assume, for a one-year basis, so...
Yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Thank you, Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Dr. Hawley? No question. Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Calais? Oh, Mr. Brentley?
Just wanted to ask Mr. Weiss, for number 24, why the $100,000 increase for the Goering-Rutterbone amendment? I guess it says here for general litigation, construction, civil rights, et cetera. Why the increase?
This firm, at this point, is handling two matters. One of them relates to the ongoing litigation with the Concord and University Preparatory and Alliance school projects. A lot of those costs are being submitted to the bonding companies of those contractors. The other part is an ongoing personnel matter that is not resolved. Those are the two matters.
These are just two items for
Yes.
the increase.
The Concord Alliance matter has spawned 5 separate lawsuits, and the other matter is still, we're in the midst of it. We don't know the outcome of that. So we have limited the use of this firm to those items. The rest of the things they were handling have been assigned to more cost-efficient ways of dealing with it. But these two items require their work, and these are the expenses they have. We monitor them closely, but the Concord project particularly has been very troublesome.
And do you see any end in sight?
Not yet, but there'll be an end. But right now, there's just a lot of cases, and we're trying to work through them. We have negotiations ongoing with the performance bonding companies to try to get a resolution. But we need to have enough funds to pay this firm.
Okay, all right, thank you. I had one other question, and that is number 26. And I just want to send a shout out and congratulations to Curtistine Walker. This is for the Power Up, Eat Right program, and I don't know if anybody caught it. I don't know what channel, but there was a nice little piece that they covered her on the news, and I think to simplify it was just advocating more nutritional items in the lunch and options for our students. And so to Mr. Campbell, if we get that new system up, we should get a copy of that coverage, and that should be the first item on our website, because it put this district in a very, very proactive, powerful light in terms of being aware of what we should be doing for students in the terms of nutrition. So I just want to say thank you, Curtistine Walker, and it was a great story. And matter of fact, if you can even get copies of those who haven't seen it, it would be great to get a copy to the board. But those are kind of things, Doctor, I think that we should have just having the link on to each other, and you just let those things kind of run. So thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Mrs. Asuda. No further comments or questions at this time.
Thank you. Let's go back to the Committee on Education, and Mr. Sumter, I'll start out with you. I know you wanted numbers 25 and 26 pulled for further discussion at legislative. Are there any other?
No, that's it. Correct. Thank you.
That's it. Mr. McCray. Mr. Eisler.
I think we're going to get some updates in the superintendent's weekly report, so I'm satisfied. Thank you, Mrs. Asuda.
Dr. Hawley? Okay, Mrs. Fink? And Mr. Brentley.
I reserve the right to ask questions on any and all items in the Education Committee.
All righty, thank you. And the Committee on Business and Finance. Mr. Sumter, is there anything you'd like pulled for further discussion?
No, thank you.
Mr. McCray? Mr. Eisler?
No, ma'am, thanks.
Dr. Hawley? Mrs. Fink? And Mr. Brentley.
Reserve the right to ask any questions on any and all of the items if necessary.
All righty, thank you. Mr. McCray?
Thank you. I just want to note that the Finance Department is very busy building the budget right now. We haven't had any meetings yet, but they are scheduled to come forward. And currently, there's some political game playing going on around the homestead exemption. I want to make it very clear for the public that, well, for one thing, in the last 11 years I've been on the board, we have never raised property taxes. We are allowed by law, or we're doing the maximum right now by law that we can for homestead exemption. If we increase it by any amount, the result will be a reduction in the general fund budget, and it'll take money away from the schools. I'm not prepared to do that. I don't know if anybody else around the table is, but I'm not. I just wanted to clear that up for the public, that we are doing the maximum allowable by law right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCray, and I'm anxious to hear more about that because I don't quite understand it. There being no further agenda, I want to thank everybody. This has been a very difficult evening for everyone in this room, and I want to thank all of you for hanging in there. Meeting's adjourned.
Your mic's still on.